Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Grumpy Acres and Lifetime Free. We've got a special guest this week, Matt from Rocky Top. He's somebody that we've known for a long time, and he definitely has some opinions on what we're going to talk about tonight.
He has some opinions on everything.
Yes, on everything, but the ones about tonight's topic are very he's very adamant about, and I want to hear his take on this. So and just to get right into it, we're going to talk about Principle 14 tonight, and if we got time, maybe Principle 15. I don't know how long this is going to take. I do know that we all kind of we're all pointing in the same direction on this thing. So I still think it's going to be a good conversation. So Principle 14 is life and liberty are secure only so long as the right of property is secure. Now, when I'm looking at this begs two different conversations. This begs a macro conversation about the role of the federal government in it. But once that's taken care of, it gets down into a micro conversation about the individual and how they deal with property rights. So Matt, you're our guest. Do you want to go ahead and start out and give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah. In particular, we're at as far as property rights is a pretty big broad subject.
Wherever you want. Let's start with the federal government's role in protecting property rights.
Okay, the federal government's role in protecting property rights. I would say that their role involves protecting us from foreign invaders, and kind of stops there.
Okay. Well,
I would echo that statement. The federal government has no role in protecting property rights. They have a role in protecting our freedoms that were given to us by the Constitution, to include property rights and to make sure that we have those rights. But other than that, they have no role in property rights. I agree with what.
Well, okay. So the Fifth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment has one of the things in it is the now I don't know if let me preface this first. This may just be somebody's take on it, but the Fifth Amendment guarantees due process in protecting rights through the federal government. Kelo versus New London. The Supreme Court of the United States said that cities can seize private property in an attempt to better the community. All right. So there's precedent set there already. Now, does that mean the precedent's right or wrong? I'm gonna say no. I never did agree with that. But you've got a huge swath of the legislature, a huge swath of the judiciary that believes that through that precedent, through the due process and the compensation part of the Fifth Amendment, that there is a point that they can take people's property from them. Well, that's going over like a lead balloon, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's those people are pandering to the electorate, all of them.
Okay.
Right? They're not following the intent of the founders and the framers of the Constitution. So right there, when you said that it's there for the community benefit, okay, so then the outweigh the needs or at this point the wants, because they're not needs. Okay, putting in a racetrack, putting in a coliseum, a golf course, a park, whatever, does not outweigh the needs of the few of the individual. So no, that's dead wrong. And so I guess if you're asking, does the federal government have a obligation to step in? Well, I mean, they can, but what are they going to do? At this point, we're going to go down a rabbit hole here, and it's inevitable. But at this point,
that's what we're here for, Matt.
It's just, we can't vote ourselves out of this, okay? But and you're going to hear me say that a lot when I talk about these subjects. But that's the point. So if the federal government did their job, they would stand up, for private property rights in this situation. They'd say, no, a city or a county or whoever can't do this. But I really, really think that falls back onto the state I think that the state needs to step in because they have prescribed authority over the municipalities, over the counties to say, no, you can't take that person's land. I'm not a lawyer, and I didn't stay at the Holiday Inn Express last night, but I don't think that that's the federal government's role. It's not enumerated to them. I think that's something that the state needs to step in and say, no, you can't take that guy's land for your golf course.
Well, except Matt, I would counter that just a little bit and say that I agree that it's a state issue and the state should deal with it. But one of the responsibilities of the federal government is to ensure that we maintain our constitutional rights. And if a state
Absolutely.
is violating our constitutional rights, it is the federal government's job to step in and say no.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's a follow-up to the Kelo versus New London. I was doing some research on it while I was getting ready for this, and I did not realize it, but after the Kelo decision, 45 states passed eminent domain reform laws that basically said that the state has the right to tell people, no, you cannot do that, making it illegal for Kelo-like economic development rulings to take place. So I think that really says a lot about the way the state legislatures have moved since that time, because that happened in the mid 90s, late 90s timeframe,
something like that.
So there's at least 45 state legislatures that even, some of those were controlled by Democrats, saw the necessity to protect, if not protect property rights, to protect the state's role in protecting those rights. So I look at that as a positive thing right there.
Well, except this is all cotton candy and rainbows and unicorn dust because none of this shit happens.
Well,
Real. I mean,
this is absolutely true. And you want me to go the opposite direction of what I just said as far as happy stuff. There's a website that rates countries' economic freedoms.
mhm.
And the United States, on a scale of 100, the United States has a score of 72.1. And what that means is, by their definition, private property is guaranteed by the government. Court system is subject to delays and lax enforcement of contracts. Corruption is possible but rare, and expropriation is unlikely. And I think, first off, we are third in the Western Hemisphere. So and I didn't look up the other two countries that are ahead of us, but we're 25th in the world, and we're supposed to be the leaders of spreading freedom and protecting people's rights and stuff. And we're that far down on the list. That's kind of pathetic, if you ask me. So there's the opposite thing. For every time we see something good happen, and it seems like something comes up that drives that score down, and it shows that things aren't working quite exactly as they should.
Yeah, I'd be interested in this list of good things that have happened.
Well, like I said, the state legislatures doing that. Trump, for all his faults, put a huge dent in the administrative state, the deep state, if you will, and all the bureaucracy of the deep state. And he got rid of a lot of rules and regulations that keep people's freedom, denies people's property rights, denies them the ability to do what they want with their property. So I think you can point stuff out and see some positive.
Well, I appreciate you pointing that out because I was waiting for the swamp to get cleaned. I just never seen it. I must have been gone that day.
Well, yeah, and it didn't happen. I think.
Oh, okay.
Got
it.
I don't think he tried hard enough, to be honest with you. I don't think he tried hard enough.
Yeah. I'm gonna get myself in so much trouble.
That's a whole nother discussion. So I think we're all on the same page, though. The federal government, their sole role is to ensure that people's rights aren't violated. And
Except they're the number one violator.
They are.
I mean, the fact of the matter, but you have to determine, well, what's the definition of property? Maybe that's a great discussion to have.
Okay.
What's property? What does that mean?
Go ahead and start.
I think it means, obviously yourself, your possessions, your energy capital, what you've worked for, your money, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how is it that we live in a country that Garen, you could spend your whole life, get a 30-year mortgage, work for a company for 40 years, pay your house off, go on Social Security, and then by that point in time, the taxes are so incredible in your property taxes that you're forced to lose your home. How is it that you can go get busted jaywalking down the street, and because you rebel against the jaywalking, they can take both your life, your liberty, and your pursuit of happiness? Take it all the way to the end. So what's property? Land of make-believe.
Well, I don't, there's gotta be a definition that fits the reality of it, of the situation. There's gotta be, and I think if we're going to talk about this, defining what property is important, but I think more importantly, defining what property rights are and understanding what that is. And property rights is my agency over what happens to the things that I own, the fruits of my labor, whether it's material, intellectual, or whatever. The property rights are my ultimate authority over what happens with that stuff.
So what is it you own? What's property?
Well, the fruits of my labor,
Okay.
anything I've gotten through just compensation, through a free market society, the fruits of my intellectual labor, if my thoughts are my property, and you and I have had this conversation before. I own this property, and I'm okay. So I'm a big advocate of a well-run conservation department in a state, because they manage the wildlife, and they if it's done properly, it benefits everybody. But Tag and I have had this conversation. That deer, once it crosses the property line, does it belong to the state or does it belong to me? And naturally, me being an advocate of conservation, proper conservation and all that, I abdicate my authority over that deer to the state. I will follow state regulations in harvesting that deer and making sure everything's good with it. Tag, on the other hand, tell them what you think about it, Tag.
I think that I own my property. And I own everything on my property. I don't.
Do I own this cat?
I think you own that cat.
Cat probably owns you, more likely.
But go ahead, Matt, because you're getting to the point. This is exactly right.
Yo, man, there's so much to say on this subject.
Yeah,
Go
go
for
ahead.
it.
Because we've been hammering it.
The cat. Do I own the cat? I didn't buy the cat. The cat actually arrived here through some cats that chose to live here, and it was born here, and it stays here. If someone asked me, "Hey, is that your cat?" I'd answer, "That's my cat." But if someone saw me mistreating the cat, then they're going to take the cat away, and they're going to punish me because they say, "Hey, that was your cat you mistreated." So the law enforcement identifies that as my cat. But I think that cat lives pretty free here. I mean, if that cat decided to go live at Dead Hedge Farm, I'm not gonna go over there and bring it back. And it's happier there. It's happier there.
Well, I think that the big point you made right there, Matt, is that based upon law enforcement, that cat is your property when it suits that narrative. But then
Bingo.
now when it comes to taxing for conservation and those kind of things, it's no longer your cat because it does not fit that narrative.
Right. And so if I throw a big fence up, a 12-foot fence up around my 300 acres here, and, don't let the deer leave my property, and I start feeding them, are they my deer? Kansas Fish and Game would say that, for example, if I buy quail from a commercial farm, raise them here in a pen, and kill them and eat them, that they're my quail. But if I turn them loose and want to take a shotgun out to kill them in my field, they have purview over it, and that they're part of the Kansas wildlife now, even though they were domestic bobwhite quail that I raised, that I bought from a commercial hatchery. And so, it's a slippery slope, but I'm going to lean towards, why is it any different for me than it is for any other Native Americans that, or Native American Indians, that don't have to follow the same rules I follow. Again, It's my property. I manage them. I take care of them. They're mine. And if there's any frog cops watching, I'm sorry. I like you guys just like Grumpy Acres does too. I'm just trying to make a point.
Now, I think, something you said earlier, I think is very important that never gets talked about with property rights. You mentioned having the responsibility of owning that property, and the mistreatment of the cat is a great argument. You mistreat that cat's your property. Does anybody, an individual, legal authority, do they have the right to come in and say, okay, you are abusing your property rights? Case in point, I own a corporation. I build a big pig farm, and I've got runoff off my pig farm into somebody else's property. Now, I'm using my property the way I see fit, but my runoff is going and interfering with somebody else's property rights. Well, I guess that's kind of a off by a couple of degrees, isn't it? But,
well, that's like the freedom of my fist ends where your nose begins, right?
yeah, exactly.
And
so I think and when you said it's a slippery slope,
plant.
yeah, when you said it's a slippery slope, I think that's, that you hit the nail right on the head right there. Because
okay, so back to the cat. Can I interrupt you a sec? Back to the cat. Okay, so who gets to define that I'm treating the cat right? Because there are people I know, family members, okay, family members who might watch this video who think I'm mistreating the cat, because guess what? This cat never comes in the house. And from my point of view, and so my other friends, this cat is leading its best life. She has access to food, access to water. She gets to hunt. She catches little birds. She catches mice. She catches snakes. She even eats an occasional tomato worm, believe it or not. But the point is, she's living free. She's living more free than I am. Okay. She doesn't have to pay to live. If I don't pay taxes, I get to go live in a cage. So, gosh, there's just so many directions to go with this. But back to the cat. Who defines if I'm treating the cat poorly or not? And so, gosh, it's just back to the slippery slope. And I always come back to one thing that I teach my children and my wife. If it's not your business, it's not your business. Just stay out of, worry about yourself. You got a lot to worry about with yourself than you do with others.
Yeah, Garen, I would like to add something to your point too. You talked about the pig farm.
Yeah.
And so the definition of freedom, in my opinion, is the ability to live your life according to your own terms, as long as you're not preventing somebody else from doing the same. The federal government's role is to ensure that you have your rights. Your runoff from your pig farm going on to the farmer, you are violating that person's rights.
Right.
That's what the federal government's purpose is. Well, if we're just start at the local government to the state government and ultimately the federal government is how it should go. So if you're violating somebody else's freedom, you have the right to choose. You don't have the right to escape the consequences of your choices. I mean, at the end of the day, you are violating that person's rights, and that's what the government should be there for.
Yeah, but I could argue that you could take care of that in civil court, and you don't need the government to step in.
Yeah, there should be a process, man. That's why I said local, state, federal. I mean, it should have a process, obviously, that it goes through. But the point that I'm trying to make is that is one of the few, in my opinion, purposes of government, whether you're talking about local or state or whatever, is to ensure that you and your neighbor has their rights.
Right. Well, and I'll add, I'm making these arguments, but ultimately, if your state or local government and theoretically the federal government, if they're doing stuff that's legal, legal and right are two completely separate issues, right? Legal and moral, sometimes they aren't even in the same ballpark. But we still theoretically have the ability to change stuff like that through the ballot box or through other means like what we're trying to achieve through freesteading. The problem in my mind becomes really acute when people have no recourse to address these oversteppings by governments, to whether it's local, state, or federal, and that's when the problem becomes really acute. And that's why I brought up the Kelo case, because that right there, in my mind, was a major turning point in the whole relationship between the property owner and the governments, civil government. So, and that's why I thought it was really important.
Gee, I think that there's a super critical role government plays. And this might surprise people who watch my channel because I'm pretty anti that kind of stuff. There's an absolute role for local, city, state, and federal government, but not the role they have today. Not to the extent that it is today, where again, where that old lady who's paid off her house now can no longer afford it because of the property tax.
Okay, Tag, you were talking about the property rights or owning property.
Hey, I just let everybody know I had to move because the sun finally went down. I can sit in my lawn chair without the sun blinding you all.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, bud, it's a beautiful view.
Thank you.
It
You
is.
know how amazing that's what you get to see every single day.
Thank you.
So yeah, I don't know where we were at the last topic.
And it's a shame that the state owns it.
Well, they do, guys.
I
At the end of the
just rent
day-
it from them.
Yeah, we rent. That's right. And at the end of the day, I talk all the time on my channel about I'm debt free because I am, and I provide all my own electricity and water because I do, and I take care of all my own needs. But the fact of the matter is, let me fall behind on a tax payment. I don't own it. I never owned it. I never will own it. The government owns it. That's just the way it is. So all the rest of the stuff is, unicorns and fairy dust.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've established that the government has a very limited role as far as property goes, property rights. Their sole purview is ensuring that nobody violates your property rights. That's it.
Well, we've established that that's what the founding fathers wanted. We have not established that is not what happens.
Well, yeah, that's not what happens. Absolutely.
That's what the founding fathers' intent was, but it is not what happens.
And then we blackpilled people on it, and like I said, the only way I see getting back is voting to change the rules and make it negative. Oh, you're laughing. I know that's the only
Vote harder, baby. Vote harder.
that's the only recourse that does not involve something untoward happening. Let's put it that way. So, if the government's not going to listen to people, if people truly want to be free and they truly want to have ownership rights, then they vote the people out that are violating the Constitution, and they institute legislation to keep the government. Okay, keep's not the right word. To try to limit what the government can do. Now, whenever the government becomes lawless and they're ignoring the law, then that's a whole nother discussion. That goes back to 12 and 13.
Gee, I agree with you that that the system's working perfectly. I mean, we just had more people than any other election in world history elect the most popular president ever elected. I think it's working perffully.
Yeah, 81 million people.
Keep preaching, brother. Keep preaching, brother.
No, but you understand what I'm saying, though. You're being facetious, but you understand what I'm saying. I mean, seriously, if things were working like they're supposed to be working, free, there would be no reason for free sale to exist. There would be absolutely no reason. There'd be no reason for us to have this conversation. And it's not. So we exhaust every avenue that we can before we resort to that which the founding fathers saw as the very last resort. So I don't know. It's frustrating, and I'm, like I told you when we were offline, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here when it's really freaking hard, because I agree with you guys. I do. I honestly do. We may disagree in degrees on certain things, but as a whole concept of property rights, I completely agree with you. All right, now we've talked about the macro on this. Let's talk about the micro, because we've had some pretty interesting conversations trying to build a community. One of the things that struck me whenever we were talking with Spags, or I don't know, was it in your community video or some video? He was talking about the way his circle is is structured and how they've got dues for like community type of stuff. All right. So in a situation like that, if you're in a community, you know, who owns the stuff? You know, if you're in a end of the world situation and you've got your community and one of the families runs out of food because they, whatever reason, doesn't really matter why. Do you have a responsibility to help them? If you do have a responsibility, does the community have the right to dictate what that responsibility is? You know, these are big questions, and this is something that a lot of people I'm talking to and I'm hearing online are talking about building community, and they run up against these issues, and we've had these conversations multiple times, and I would just like to hear what you guys have to say about that. What you would tell people that are running into these problems. You know, how do you handle that, or how do you approach that? You know,
Who
go
you
ahead,
ask?
Tag. Go ahead, Tag. You want to? You're
It don't matter. What I own is mine. You know, at the end of the day, if there was somebody who I gave a shit about in my community that was hungry, I would feed them because I'm not a dick.
Okay.
But what belongs to me belongs to me. I mean, and
Yeah.
Matt, go ahead. I don't know how to say it any better than that.
Well, we'll pretend that the three of us, you know, our three families agreed that we're all going to fall back to my place, right? And I wouldn't allow that myself to be put in that position if I didn't firmly in my heart believe that you guys are going to do your absolute best to provide for the future
Right.
of surviving that situation. And so if they're in, you know, Grumpy, you show up and you've got the shirt on your back and you made it here because whatever situation occurred, but you got the shirt on your back and that's it. I'm going to feed
Like
you, bud.
Grumpy T-shirt.
Yeah, I'm going to feed you because I made a commitment previously and I will stand by that commitment, right?
Well, and I think that's a great point. And Tag mentioned it. You know, you build your circle around people that you care about and you trust. What does Spag say? He says my life, my wallet, my
My
wife.
life, my wife, and my wallet.
Yeah, there you go. You know, that's the type of community you want to build. You know, but you have to have these discussions because we got really deep into it one time, and you know, and again, it goes back to the responsibility. You know, morally, if you invite these people into a situation where they're in a community with you, then like Matt said, you know, you made a commitment and you're gonna follow through on it. You know, and I'd hope that that it goes conversely where the person that receives it or receives the I don't want to say charity because it's not really, I don't know if you call it charity or not, but whatever it is, the person that receives it's got a responsibility to ensure that they're not abusing it, right?
Well, I think there's another side to this too, G, and I don't know how we got here, but it's in my best interest. Under Matt's scenario, you know, the three of us families ended up together. It's in my best interest to keep the other families healthy and fed and productive. Period. It's in my own best interest to do that. So the first issue is I don't want it mandated to me because I'll get very cranky very, very fast. What's mine is mine. I'm super happy to donate it, give it away. Don't be telling me what to do though, you know? And then the other thing is that I don't want to be an ass. I don't want someone to be hungry that I care about. And then the third issue, it's in my best interest anyway.
Right. Well, do you think that translates? Do you think that translates to the macro, where it's the city's? It's in the city's best interest not to go around violating people's property rights.
Seems to be working fine for them so far. I think they're loving how it's working.
Okay. Matt, you got any comment?
You said, do I think it's in the city's best interest not to violate people's personal property rights? What city?
Okay, like I said,
every city I've ever been in violates your personal property rights all the time.
I'm trying to play a devil's advocate here to keep the conversation.
Not working.
Yeah.
It's hard. It really is hard because you know at the end of the day, as was Ayn Rand had a saying that how'd it go? It was something along the lines of those who decide that they have the right to take people's property for their own uses have reduced their fellow human beings to chattel, and I really wish off the top of my head I could think of the exact quote because it's really eloquent. But the point is that through all these violations, that taxation is theft. I mean, you can't get around it, and
Amen. Sorry.
anything that is given to somebody in return for their loyalty, whatever, is largest. And if you look at the welfare system in America, it is based solely on largest. It is you are taking from somebody else, giving it to another person, and expecting something from them. So the federal government and the state government and the city governments have reduced us to chattel. Okay. And I don't know about you guys, just the thought of that, the thought that I am nothing, my sole purpose in life is to provide for somebody else who does not care about me, does not have my best interest in mind. Just, it bothers the hell out of me, but what do you do?
Gee, I could argue the counter. I think we have a responsibility to our community. I think we have a moral responsibility to our community, but the state has no business telling me what my morals are.
Well, absolutely. I'm not saying that. In fact, that the Bible is very, very specific on charity, and the whole key to charity is the person has to be deserving of it. You don't get charity just because you exist.
Don't glean your fields too closely. Leave some behind for charity.
That's right. You leave the corners.
That means someone has to go out there and actually gather it.
Right. And the Bible flat out says, if you don't work, you don't eat.
You guys know who John Locke is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So he had a famous quote, and I pulled it up for this video tonight because I think he just sums it up really, really well. And he reasoned that God gave the earth and everything in it to the whole human family as a gift. Therefore, the land, the sea, the acorns in the forest, the deer feeding in the meadow belongs to everyone in common. However, the moment someone takes the trouble to change something from its original state of nature, that person has added his ingenuity and labor to make that change. Herein lies the secret to the origin of property rights.
Can't argue with it.
Matt, you got any thoughts to that? I thought that was an interesting quote. I'd never read that.
I think it's fantastic. And then, my mind keeps popping up to what Thoreau said, you don't own the land owns you.
Yeah. I think that brings up a super good point too, when you talk about what is property. My energy capital is worth a lot. People who don't live this lifestyle don't understand. It's hard.
They don't understand at all.
You get up in that bright crack in the morning and you get to work and you work all day long and you work all day tonight. And then some of those people who live our homesteads are idiots like me and have a YouTube channel and do all of these things. So then at night you get to do all that stuff too. But it's a full-time gig. I mean, it's a lot, it's a lot to be doing it every single day. And for someone to be able to come in and say, hey, you have too much land, you produce too much food, it's not fair.
It seems like the system is designed to reward the grasshopper and not the ant.
Absolutely designed that way.
Yeah.
And people should wake up. Those sleeping lions should wake up and realize what they're giving up.
It's legal plunder. It's nothing more than legal plunder. And my property is, when they tax me to go provide phones, or they tax me to go do this or that, or to go fight some foreign war, or to give some assistance or farm subsidies or whatever it is, I'm opposed to 100% of it. It's
well, the county taxes me because they say that they need to hire a guy to drive a really expensive tractor with a really expensive mower to mow my own gosh darn roadside. I got my own mower. You do too. And so does every other farmer. Why are they taking my money at the county level and then justifying a guy's wages and equipment? Again, I could go on and on about how there's just the largesse and the waste.
Matt, let's take that another step. So they hire a guy with a tractor and a mower to mow down noxious weeds along your ditch.
No, just to mow. They're just mowing. They're not even mowing weeds. They're mowing all the roadsides, 743 miles of it.
Then they're also employing a noxious weed department to
Mhm.
enforce, to take more of my capital away to remove plants that they themselves planted.
Yes, that's a fact.
Well, and I think you guys are talking about symptoms and not the cause.
The
Yeah.
cause is people don't want to be free.
And they
Right.
don't. And there's the problem. You know, the county would not be able to do that if the people said no. You know, and it's that simple. That all these issues that we're talking about, the government overstepping its bounds and not following the Constitution, that's just symptoms. Those are symptoms of a problem with the culture. You know, and I guarantee you, you know, if what they say is going to happen happens, you know, the collapse of the economy and stuff, I guarantee you there are going to be people lining up to hand stuff over to the government whenever the government says give it to us. And I guarantee you that there are going to be people lining up telling the government, take my rights and make me safe.
Guaranteed.
You know, and that's pretty sad. And quite frankly, I don't want to be around people like that. You know,
I pulled another quote. This is, I don't know who said this, but I just read it and thought it was just brilliant. And it's in reference to exactly what we're talking about. It says these services are not and have never been authorized constitutionally. By doing these things, the government is committing cosmic sized theft by taking from the haves and giving to the have-nots, irrespective of why the have-nots have not. It's brilliant.
Yep.
Well, hey, our own county, you know, tells us all the time how they don't have enough money. They're running out of money. They keep raising taxes. The mill levy goes up, and they're getting more taxes as a result of the value of the property going up. And they're doing more stuff all the time. Quit doing so much stuff. You know, you don't have to be so extra, is what they say. You know, don't be extra. I don't need my county to be extra.
Property taxes are a huge scam. Guys, have you ever noticed that your house, when you go buy a house, it just always appraises right?
Yeah.
You know, and they just keep driving the prices up so they can tax us more, so they can do more things. It's
Mhm.
I did a video series called The Illusion of Equity, and it's a freaking illusion. It is not real. It is just absolutely not real. Theft.
well, yeah. And as far as where we live, I'm just now finding out what the property taxes are like in this area, and it's a huge shock.
Gee, but it wasn't always like that. This last year was the biggest jump I've ever seen. I've lived here now 25 years.
Yep.
Matt, you have any thought on that? I have never seen it do what it just did.
Oh yeah, we got some county commissioners that love to spend money.
Yeah.
And the ones before them love to spend money, but these guys are like, hey, hold my beer.
Right.
We're in a rural community, and we're paying for a $1 million library. Is
Yep.
that right?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I'm so pro library. It's not even funny. I mean, if you're watching this and you're a homesteader or you're a prepper and you're not going to the library and getting books, you're a fool, because you can get in almost any state, you can get just a plethora of information from books in the library for free versus having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a library. You know, so I'm extremely pro library, but my gosh, the $1 million library where we live is like having a Lamborghini on a dirt road.
Right.
You know, it's just,
And we're in the 21st century where most of the young people don't utilize that. They get their information off the internet.
right.
It's just not, it's another thing. Some people had a bright idea and they wanted it, and so they're going to get it because they're, you know, they have the sway. And so I kind of wanted to, and I don't want to drive the bus for you here, but at some point I'd like to get into what can you do?
Go for it. We're all about, so we got this rule when we're talking, Matt. We can blackpill people all we want, but at the end we have to give solutions. We have to give them white pills. We have to give them solutions, because we're not, I think Tag agrees with me, we're not those people that are selling fear. Right. So if you got
Right.
solutions, man, fire away.
Sure, absolutely, there's solutions. I don't think you can vote your way out of this at the federal or state level. I think that's gone. Okay. And so depending on what state you live in and what the rules are like in your county, and if you're living in a city, I'm sorry, there's no hope. Okay, there's just not. It's just, you get home law in cities in most states, and they can do whatever they want, and you have no freedom. But if you're living in a rural area, most states still recognize the county sheriff as, you know, the highest level of law enforcement. Most states recognize the sheriff as the executive person of that portion of government. Your county commissioners, are like the legislature. And again, this is varies from state to state. So I'm sure there'll be some chatter in the comments here, but where we live, in Kansas here, we're dealing with these rules, and I say get involved. Okay, get involved with your local sheriff's department. Volunteer. See where they need help. See what events they're doing where you can help out and be seen. A guy that I know, it's a really great salesman trainer, always says that be seen, be seen. And I think that's important. Be seen, being involved. Be involved in your local government, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. If you're here, obviously you believe in some freedom. So it doesn't matter, whether you're a D or an R or a libertarian or whatever. Be involved in the local politics. Don't be a complete a-hole. Okay, be involved in a positive way. So if you're be involved with your precinct, be involved with being seen doing something, right? Be involved with committees and organizations in the area. I reside on some I probably don't want to name them here, but I reside on some organizations that are at the federal level, and I reside on some organizations that are at the state and local level. And so by that involvement, I'm brushing elbows with people at the state legislature, with people in the federal government. And so I get privy to information, and likewise, I plant seeds of ideas and plant seeds of freedom with these people. And then plant the seeds of freedom with all your neighborhood and your community members, all the people who live nearby, know your next door neighbors, stand up together. Maybe I talked to a next door neighbor recently, not next door. If you don't live rural, you may not understand, there's like the 4 mile rule. Someone lives within 4 miles, they're a neighbor. Mm-hmm. So, I was talking to a neighbor that's 2 miles away, and he was just telling me nonchalantly about how he was really upset that the county sprayed the weeds on the side of his road and killed some of his oak trees. And I had no idea. And he starts talking about, he doesn't like to use spray in his field, and he, trying to protect this and trying to protect that. I've known this guy my entire life, but not, we haven't hung out for 20 years. And he starts talking about it, and I realized, wow, this guy's just right down the road, and we have so much in common. Okay, well, so in my mind, I'm putting that together that, hey, we need to create some solidarity so that we send a message back to the county. We don't like spraying in our neighborhood. And then if we join together and can show them that, hey, we're going to take care of it at the level it needs to be taken care of, and then just leave us alone. That's the kind of stuff I say, get involved, right? But then if you got to butt heads with them about something because you're involved in politics locally, you're involved with, being seen as a good guy on committees and volunteering and so on, then your voice gets heard. Because the people that wanted the library, to go back to that discussion, they're popular. And that's why that's happening. Okay, it was a beauty pageant and they won. Well, be your own beauty pageant, be popular in your own way, and sell the idea of freedom. And so, guys, I tell you, I try to infect people with freedom and how to live free in every way I can at a local level, here at the small level. Am I going to try to do it here nationally, internationally, whatever? Absolutely. But I have the most effect locally. So
and I think
that's my solution.
I think you make a good point, Matt. We want to give a contrasting lifestyle as to what the other side, the anti-freedom side, can give people, and we want to present it so that it's more attractive than giving up your freedom.
It's sales.
Yeah, it is.
It's selling the idea. And so what's tag? How do you sell? What's one of the number one ways to sell? You speak to
their why.
Right. You speak to the why, and there's a great YouTube video there on Speak to the Why. Go look that up. You can't miss it with Simon Sinek, because that's just absolutely applicable to here. Speak to the why. Why would they want to live free? Why would they want to tax you less? Why would they want to leave you alone? Whatever. You guys sell it to them, not your point, their point. I've tried to sell to some of the county government that maybe they should leave me alone. Okay, and so I isolated their why, and I think I spoke to it. I'm also trying to speak to their why of, well, we don't want to make that guy mad because we really like these other things he does. Okay, whatever. I was speaking to their why.
Tag, all I can think of with speaking to their why is you teaching Yoda how to shoot. That's the only thing that for some reason that pops into my mind, folks. I tried for years to teach Yoda how to shoot, and it invariably ended up in an argument. And I talked about this on freesteading, and one day we're shooting and Tag was there, and he goes just step back and let me take care of it. And folks, about halfway through the session, she was standing there with tears rolling down her face, calling him an a-hole because he had pushed her so far out of her comfort zone. But she was shooting the rifle like she'd never shot before. And by the end of the day, she was actually handling it pretty darn well.
Yep.
You know, and it was like Matt said, you know, Tag was able to speak to her why and push her out. And if we're pushing freedom, we're going to push people out of their comfort zones. You know, and so he was able to do it. So there's proof in what Matt said. Just absolutely 100% proof, because it does work.
Well, I would add, Yoda and I have a better relationship today because of it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, we gained a level of respect for each other. We had to butt those heads that day, and it was a beautiful thing. And I've got some other things we can be doing, since Matt wanted to talk about, you know, the way you can politically be involved. We can also be involved economically. And I think economically we can make as big a dent as there is. And, you know, I'll give you just a couple little examples just so we give them. Don't ever go buy another Pizza Hut pizza. Go buy at a local pizzeria, and then pay cash. And let me tell you why. This is what will happen. By paying cash, you are taking away the 3% fees that the credit card companies charge that vendor, starving those large corporations who are only going to use that money to lobby Congress for more of your taxpayer dollars. That's the first thing you're going to do. By shopping at that local pizzeria, right? By giving them business, you're helping your local community, right? And you're not participating in the system, again, starving the beast. And so if you vote with your dollar, and Matt, I appreciate it. Go get involved in your sheriff. I agree with everything said. You know, go get involved in your local school boards, everything said, but we've got to start waging economic war as well. And we've got to consider where our dollars are going. Guys, did you know that if you have an Alexa in your house, you're the product? You are the product. They are selling you. Period.
Yeah, if it's free, you're not the customer.
That's right. So start being smart with the way that we do things. Start paying attention to where our dollar goes, and paying attention to whether or not you're the product or the customer, right?
Absolutely.
I'll leave it at that.
Well, and you know, people are, they're going to hear the same thing over and over and over again as we go through these conversations, because the answers are really damn simple. I mean, it's really simple. The answers are simple. You know, the hard part is actually putting them into practice and having the fortitude to follow through on it. You know, because it is hard. You know, I'm sitting here. You're talking about who. You know, we're sitting here talking about you're the product. How many people signed up for freesteading on a Gmail account?
Mm-hmm.
I did.
Yep.
I did.
Yep. A lot. But at the end of the day, it's also scary, because there's all these fears out there that are going on. It's so amazing to me that hate speech is being spewed, but it's typically not by that, you know, gun-toting redneck guy you see, right? You got all these things going on, but yet we're scared of it. We're scared. People aren't willing to take a stand anymore. And I don't think people really want to be free. I think they want their nice little safety nest, and, you know, they just want to live secured like a lion in a zoo. They want to be a lion in a zoo.
And I agree. I don't think I've said it for a long time. You know, real change in this country is not going to happen until the soccer moms and the NASCAR dads are looking at their little children's faces, wondering how they're going to feed them that tonight.
That's right.
You know, it's whenever, and we can get a whole discussion about guerrilla warfare. You know, the first thing you do, the first thing you do is attack the infrastructure. And the reason is you destroy faith in the government, you know, and that's what there's still a huge swath of the population that has faith in the government for some reason. Despite all,
it's not faith, but it's because it's easy. We are lazy. We are weak.
Okay, I'll take that.
Matt, go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
Yeah, hey, sorry, it got dark outside. I had to come in the house.
Mm.
And that and the mosquitoes were eating me alive. I don't have a fancy studio like you guys.
Have you been to my studio? It's not that fancy.
Yeah, mine's not fancy either.
It's got $1 million view,
It's got $1 million view. That is true.
maybe more, depending on who's applying the tax.
I was gonna say,
measurement.
don't say that out loud, man. We don't want them. Tax assessor's gonna watch this and go, $1 million, huh?
Yeah, it's $1 million view in 4 different directions, so it's $4 million. We're going to tax you more.
Right.
Ouch.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm sick of it. I started my
Yeah, me
day
too.
filling out tax papers.
Well,
Yeah,
listen,
good,
guys, this has been a great conversation. And like I said, I was trying to play devil's advocate, and it's really hard because I agree with everything you guys are saying. Seriously, it's just how we got to where we are and how we get back is such a hard thing to answer. You know,
Starve the beast.
start
Push
well,
back.
Yep.
you know.
You're either feeding the beast or you're starving the beast. There is no middle ground. And you get to pick. Feed it or starve it. That's your choice.
Okay. You know, but so we're running out of time. We've got a few minutes left. Matt, do you got anything going on that people might find interesting?
I've got all kinds of interesting things going on in my
That you
life.
want to
brother.
talk about?
That's why I was laughing.
Matt's kind of a private guy. He
Yeah. So okay. So here's the deal. I've been asked to put my money where my mouth is because I have a tendency to say the same thing over and over. It's like, oh, hey, there's these guys with their YouTube degree, you know, they're doing this, they're doing that. And everyone's pressured me and they said, hey, you should do a YouTube channel. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not very good at the video part and the editing part and getting around to making a video, but I'm pretty shortly here. We're about to launch. So I'm not going to have probably the really clean editing and all that stuff, but Misha and Matthew and I we're going to give it a shot. So look for that launch pretty shortly.
somebody will find you interesting. We're case in point because we are so amateurish at this. It's not even funny, you know. But I'm looking forward to. I've been telling you for a long time. You need to just start a channel. You know, you got a lot of
Yep.
you got a lot of good info. Tag.
Thank
What
you.
about you?
Oh goodness. Today we got the air conditioning mini splits put into the processing kitchen, which is a big deal.
Nice.
You know, so now the processing kitchen, I've got 99% done. All I have left is to hook up a couple water lines, and that baby is fully operational, and it couldn't come at a better time. You know, we've got a beef coming up here before long. We've got, you know, all the garden harvest coming up before long. So got that all going on, working in pod 4, but freesteading's taken a ton of my time. And it's so fascinating to me. Just so fascinating to me that what people say, and it just, the whole thing is just fascinating. I've been learning so much as we go along, you know, this process. And then obviously trying to keep up on my YouTube channel, which I'm not doing a very good job of. But yeah, there's lots going on. Just trying to get the Wallapini. So we got all the dirt work done for the Wallapini, and stole a whole bunch of dirt out of one of my ponds. So that means that pond got bigger, not because I wanted it bigger, but because I wanted the dirt for the Wallapini. So that was nice, you know, a nice little side effect. Yeah, that's what I got going on.
That's great, man. That's awesome. I built that deck. I promised people on Tuesday that I would do a video, and I still haven't done it. We're recording this on Thursday. It's going to post on Friday. And I got to find time to make some more videos because I'm like you, man. I've been so busy the last couple of weeks that the videos have really fallen off. I mean, I was up till 2 a.m. last night processing raspberries. You know, we're getting ready. We're going to go to the back to the land festival, and we got a vendor tent, and we're going to finally start working in earnest on getting that alternative income stream coming. You know, so we're excited about that. So if anybody's going to be at the Back to Land Festival, it's there in East Central Tennessee. I think there's still tickets out there. Get tickets. You come see us, and you throw stuff at us if you want, or you could shake our hands. I don't care. It's as long as you show up. All right. Well, if you guys don't have anything else to say, I'm going to say that we've been at this for, I don't know, 40, 50, almost an hour now. Any closing thoughts? I know what Tag's gonna say. Matt, you got any closing thoughts? You gotta come up
Do
with
unto
a
others as
tagline.
you have, I would say, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, but push back when they push on you.
There you go. Sounds like a winner tagline, man. What about you, Tag?
Yeah, you're either gonna starve the beast or feed the beast, and you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. Hold the line, don't give an inch, tag out.
Well, and if you're feeding the beast, eventually it's gonna eat you. You know, eventually. We know people that's eating already, don't we? Most importantly, man, everybody, you gotta go out tomorrow. You gotta go pursue a life done free. All right, everybody, take care. Bye. Thanks, Milo.